tycoon Manny Villar has denied allegations of market abuse involving Villar Land Holdings, saying neither he nor his companies engaged in illegal practices. In a statement, the former senator said Villar Land has yet to receive the criminal complaint filed by the SEC with the Justice Department over alleged false or misleading statements that supposedly defrauded investors. Still, Villar said, our company has consistently upheld the highest standards of good corporate governance. In fact, we welcomed and fully cooperated when the SEC began its fact-finding investigation. He added, in all my years as an entrepreneur, I have never engaged in illegal practices designed to defraud customers and investors.
The statement comes after the SEC's January 30 filing of criminal charges against Villar Land and several officers, alleging market manipulation, insider trading, and misleading disclosures. The case stems from huge discrepancies in the company's 2024 financials, where unaudited statements reported assets of over 1.3 trillion pesos and net income of nearly 100 billion, while audited figures showed assets of just 35 billion pesos. The charges rattled the market on Monday, sending Villar-linked stocks sharply lower. All-day marts hit the floor, plunging by 30%, while Villar Land, Vista Land, Vista REIT, and All Home all posted double-digit losses. The stocks have since recouped losses today, but many still ended the day in the red. Forbes reported that as a result of yesterday's sell-off, Manny Villar lost over $1.2 billion in net worth after the SEC announced the charges.
All right, let's try to discuss this a little bit further with Regina Capital's head of sales, Luis Limlingan. Good evening, Luis. Welcome to the big story. Long time no see. Oh, I can't see you because you're on the phone.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me on the show. And it's been a while, no?
It's been a very long while. But I know we took off from the Villar case, but I'm not going to ask you too much about that because I understand the case is ongoing. It's in fact, the SEC cited the sub judice rule on us when we invited them to speak about it, which means because the case is already filed or with the DOJ, they don't want to speak on it any further to avoid any prejudice or bias. But one thing that we have gotten asked about a lot is what are all these charges about, right? Insider trading, market manipulation, and misleading disclosures. Talk us through that for those who don't understand how the markets work.
Well, you know, these are terms that are used in the market law. When we hear of insider trading, this usually happens when a person or entity trades a company's stock. And what's important is that they use material and non-public information. That's very important because this information could supposedly affect the stock price positively or negatively. And that's why it's an insider, because you're the only one who has the info on that stock. An example of this is just probably, you know, a company executive who has shares or prior earnings, prior knowledge about the company's earnings, decides to buy the stock before it's released. This could affect the company, right? And in these cases, it's illegal because it gives an unfair advantage to the other people who don't have that access to the public information.
Okay. Hi, Luis. Are you still there? Can you hear us?
Yes. I hope you're able to catch everything.
Yes, we were able to. So there is insider trading. You discussed that. Now, how does that lead to market manipulation?
Well, market manipulation and insider trading aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. When it's market manipulation, this is when someone or probably an entity, they influence the price. And it's different. It can be different from insider trading because that influence is usually artificial. And they're common types. If you've been around the market, there are certain that you might be such as they call pump and dump, where you hype a stock, sell it at the top, while others are holding the company at or the stock at a loss. There's spoofing or when you place fake orders to people that there is artificial demand. There's even just spreading rumors about the stock just to hype it up. So these types of manipulation, it can be done by individuals or even a large syndicate, just to give the appearance that there is a hype going around the stock, so people will get involved in it.
Okay, well, a lot of people, were familiar at the beginning of this whole mess with the valuations, right, of one of the Villar-led companies. How much did that have to do with this whole mess and all these cases that the Villar empire is facing right now?
Well, it is assumed that the, let's say, company disclosures or financial statements, when they are published, they are supposed to be very factual or, without misleading the public. And they even use independent auditors for that. So it is assumed that everything, all the information that is public, reflects the company. So if there is any false information that is published, it will mislead everyone, and especially if you slant it to the positive, people will be buying into the stock, right? So that's what that is what makes posting all this false information very bad for the market, because it erodes the trust and confidence in investors.
Okay, but Luis, walk us through the process. What are some of the red flags regulators look at to substantiate, let's say, insider trading, as well as to determine whether public disclosures have been misleading investors?
Well, when it comes to insider trading, usually I think independent bodies look at the price action movement. So, for example, if there is news that will affect the company, but the price suddenly reacts before it comes out, then it could be suspicious. It could be suspicious. I'm not saying that it will lead to, or it is a result of insider trading, but sometimes that could be one of the key giveaways. So auditors look at that, and then let's say maybe a particular broker or account has been making all the right moves, especially when timing the buying or the selling of the stock, then maybe it's open to some suspicion, because how can that person be very good? Nobody in the market has claimed to make 100% of the right move. So anyone who probably does that, especially when it's been doing it over a long or substantial time, probably is going to invite some suspicion.
So it really, these charges, they really sound like I'm trying to rack my brain to think of anyone who's been convicted, or baka hindi lang na-publicize.
I would like to think it's not yet publicized, because it's very hard to also prove that as well. Because there are other ways to layer it. For example, let's say, someone who works in a listed company knows about that information. They could pass it on to someone, right? And then maybe there's a way to cover the track. These people, we have to also understand, I think they might know the rules and intricacies, so they probably also try to cover their track. So that's why I think it's also very hard to do that, and that's why the PSE, CMIT try to make the rules very rigid and try to promote transparency. Also make a very thorough audit of the brokers to see that there's no suspicious behavior between counterparties and clients.
Yeah. I have faith the SEC will get to the bottom of this mess. But one last question before we let you go. what are you forecasting the markets to be at? I mean, I know the last time Sean and I maybe spoke to you, it was going the right way, right? It was heading towards
9,000.
10,000.
Yeah,
And
it
now
was
we're
9,000.
obviously it's not in a good place. It's fallen back down to 6,400, 6,500 levels. What are the positive catalysts that you're seeing, if any?
Okay, for starters, I think there is a valuation gap. Obviously, let's get the obvious out of the way, in that we were the laggard last year when compared to Asia. But we can see is that I think the foreign funds are holding off from buying, especially year end, because it's very hard to defend your position to buy into a losing market at the end of the year to your bosses. Whereas now at the beginning of the year, it seems late, and I think that's why they see that there is an opportunity in the Philippines. Now, we look at the economic print, and it has been rather disappointing to say the least. But I think it's an opportunity that now that we have exposed the problems, especially with the government spending, maybe the government will also try to ramp up. And given the low base that we experienced in the second half, perhaps maybe with that, we might be able to rebound and perform much better than the Aspen peer.
So all is not lost yet.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll leave that there. Thank you so much for talking to us tonight and explaining all of those technical issues. That was Regina Capital's Head of Sales, Luis Limlingan.